All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, because everyone is on the internet nowadays. I have a very special guest today, the one, the only, Mr. Sean Tallen. What's up, Sean?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's been a long time coming. For those of you listening, me and Sean have worked with each other. Fuck, man, I think it's been... 2 years.
On and off over like a bit longer, probably like 3 years, I think.
Kind of like there was a big gap in between, but then that's when we were once again reunited.
Yep.
But for those of you listening, Sean is pretty much a jack of all trades. He's a stripper on the weekends, professional beer drinker, and he's also a psychic. So if you guys have any worries, anything that you need to clear up, just give him a call, 1-800 fuck you, whatever. But yeah, man, I've been doing this for a while I've been trying to get you for the longest time, dude. I know you're a busy
been
guy.
a couple weeks. I've been it's the new job.
Yeah, dude. So what's going on?
Madness.
What's your life update right now?
Life update. I've been doing the study abroad thing for this high school study abroad program. I'm one of 5 year-round employees, so that means we're spread very, very thin. I'm making lots of educational materials. I built a film curriculum for to teach in Florence, and I'm going to be actually doing all the audio work for that, like doing audio instruction. I wrote the audio curriculum. I'm going to be, teaching these kids a bit of film sound. It's going to, of course, it wasn't a huge task because it's only they're going to be there for like maybe 3 days out of 1 week. They're going to be learning about that shit. And then I'll be, so that's cool.
Fucking sweet.
Yeah. And, that's a cool opportunity. It's finally being paid to go all over the world.
I was about to say, I mean, have they actually sent you places to go travel and stuff?
They sent me to the way I found out about the job. It was really interesting. Like I'd had the last interview on a Friday, right? In February. And I'm like, oh, I hope I got the job. And then I got an email saying and I sent them off this presentation I promised them, and they checked it out, and they're like, wow, this is really amazing. Well, we'll give you a call Monday and let you know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean I got the job? I was stressed all weekend about it. And then the next Monday, you do what you do when you're unemployed. You're just sleeping.
You
I'm woken up at 11 o'clock. Yeah, dude, it's 11 a.m. I wake up, I'd been up the previous night watching God knows what. And all of a sudden my phone is just getting calls and emails and everything like that. And they're going, we've been trying to reach you all morning. You as an employee of this company, you need to have your, I'm like, wait, what? Huh? And then they're like, we're trying to tell you that we need you. We're trying to book you a ticket right now. We need you to be in Boston tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, what? like a great opportunity's gone up. The guy, our East Coast rep's sick, and he needs to, and the founder needs to show you the ropes. I'm like, wait,
oh, wow.
wait. So what? So I got the job, and they're just like, what? You didn't know that? And I'm like, no. This is the first I've heard I got the job. I'm like, well, welcome to the company.
That is awesome.
And I'm just like, oh, fuck yeah, dude. All right, cool. I'm going to Boston. And it was a beautiful winter drive. Got to know my boss, who's this awesome. I'm not going to say the company name just because I don't want them to get implicated in this. I'm cursing. I'm saying stuff, and it's a program for high school kids. I'm not going to say anything about that. But our boss, he's an immigrant. He moved here from Armenia, after the wall came down, and he's 19 after the Iron Curtain, I mean. And he and the guy got accepted into Stanford. He already spoke 6 languages when he got here.
Holy shit.
Gets his PhD in international relations now, and this guy is incredibly smart, and he's a total dork, and he's gay. It's
That's
I'm just like,
right
I'm like, and he's like, I start talking politics with him, everything. We agree on a lot of stuff, except we're coming from 2 different angles. Where I'm actually, he's leaning a bit more center than me. I'm a bit more left, just because, I haven't experienced what he has with the left.
Right, exactly.
With what the perceived left is, which is actually, if you want to get into it, and we even got into this, was the perceived the left right. There was a left and right to communism.
Right, exactly.
You know? And like really what happened, back in the divide when Lenin was dying, and it was a fight between Trotsky and Stalin. Stalin was considered the right wing of the Communist Party, and Trotsky was the left wing, trying to bring democracy into it. Now, Trotsky was no saint, but at the same time, and communism and all its flaws, there's many of them, but there's also good things, and there's good and bad things in every kind of political system that's ever been made. But either way, it's interesting to see someone, to be working with somebody who has that thing. But there's the one thing that we both can say that we definitely will always agree on is that the mix between the two is the right way to go.
Right.
And totalitarianism sucks.
Totally
Freedom
sucks.
is awesome.
Totally sucks.
And you know what? The idea of America is awesome. It doesn't mean that America's awesome.
I was gonna say you specified that exact term that I use a lot is the idea.
Oh yeah,
America.
the ideology that we were sold in elementary school is beautiful. We're all raised on it. We, just like I'm sure that, like the entire Muslim world thinks Islam is this beautiful, beautiful thing. And just that faith is so important to them and everything like that. That's what they were brought up with to believe.
Exactly.
Just like we were with our ideals, and it's important to always recognize that just because you were brought up that way and because you believe something's right doesn't mean it necessarily is. It may be, based on what your judgment of right and wrong is, but that's also very subjective. So yeah,
and that's the whole beauty of the syndication of politics and religion. It's like, a lot of it now I'm starting to figure out now that I'm older is it's all because of money. It's all money.
Well, yeah, there's that, and it's not all money for everybody. It's all the reason it all starts is because of money. The reason these things are happening is because of money and wealth and power.
Yeah, political gain too.
Exactly. And it all goes up to one person, but people buy it.
Wow,
and that's why they sell it. Plain and simple. Religion, politics, and any idea is something you can put a price tag on, really.
Yeah, man. And speaking of politics, I want to jump into this subject right away with you because you're the right fucking person to talk to about this. But
yeah.
Hillary Clinton. Shit, man. I was doing research after research after research. Dude, federal prosecutors, they're investigating the possible mishandling of classified materials or something like that on her private email server.
At the same time, it's like I see both sides of this story, and it's always important to read into both sides and what both opinions are saying, and then read with the facts that are known, right. And then to not jump to conclusions and not let your opinions dictate how you feel. You have to at least have the resolution to be able to say, I'm not saying this is true, but I think that this is happening. This might be happening, but because there's no factual evidence of it, I'm not going to say that it is. And it's important to always look at both sides that way, in my opinion. And one of the things with her is with these emails, I see that, yeah, she kept crap on her own server. She knew it was wrong. She did it. She broke the law. Honestly, I think there's a million other reasons that Hillary should not be allowed to run for office beyond that alone. And a lot of the sad part is most of those reasons that I believe are perfectly legal.
Right, exactly.
And I really think that and I was actually just debating with somebody about this online, which is one of my favorite pastimes. Is when somebody likes to say something likes to proclaim something, and right. I find that there's another side to that story. I like to point that side of the story out without calling them an idiot or trolling. That's not good form. But like what this one person was saying was, that's a bit of a double standard. I mean, Bush and Cheney were doing blah, blah, blah with the war. And they lied about WMDs. They lied about this. They were shady in all these areas. And how many other people kept their emails and other servers? And you're only attacking Clinton? Well, actually, those other people are under investigation, for one thing. But the second thing is to say, well, if we're going to go there and say that Bush and Cheney are guilty of war crimes, then Hillary is too. And why isn't she being investigated for that? I'm sorry. Just because, and they say, and she says it's a mistake. It was a mistake that I made. It was we were being lied to by the Republicans. We were being lied to by the Bush administration. We didn't know. I'm sorry, but you know what? 2 days after 9/11 happened, I was high off my gourd in San Francisco going to film school. I was 20 years old, and I heard Bush first start trying to link this to Saddam. And I was going, so that's not like Saddam wouldn't have done this. This is a terrorist act. He's usually just been sitting there screwing with countries around him. You know, this isn't Saddam. Right. This is, and it's wait, another Bush wants to go get Saddam. Duh. I wonder what that's for. Oil. And then and okay, obviously there's that. Now this fucking dumbass 20-year-old film student who is high out of his fucking mind was able to see that Bush was lying and why. Yet, for some reason, people like John Kerry, liberals, quote unquote, like John Kerry and Hillary Clinton could not see that he was lying. These are two people who had, over twice as long on this planet to figure out a lot of the difference between a liar and a non-liar. They both have law degrees from Yale. They both have had political careers spanning for decades and corporate careers spanning for decades, and working on Capitol Hill, making deals, being able to tell who's shady, who's not, everything like that. I mean, Hillary working with Trump, hell, she like that. That's politics. They knew that they were lying. They knew why we were going into Iraq.
How could they not know?
They knew that there were no WMDs. So you're telling me that these two Yale graduates, John Kerry and Hillary Clinton, did not know that, did not ever think to ask about evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Now, there's that alone. And see, so when you bring up these things like the emails, and then you try to rebut it with, well, Bush and Cheney aren't being held to the same standards. I'm like, well, then Hillary isn't either. Maybe we're finally able to get her on something, for fuck's sake. You know, like maybe for some reason something isn't being blocked and it might actually happen. And you know what? I have a very strong feeling that nothing's going to happen.
I have the same intuition. I don't think
and you know what? Honestly, I don't think that's the worst that she's done. And I don't think that, I'm not going to sit here shouting Benghazi like some right-wing tool or anything like that. What I think the issue is again, it's what all of us who have a mind are shouting right now, is that it's this bullshit money in politics. And she is the symbol of that. She has been the symbol of that for a long time. That's why she lost to Obama. Now, Obama was in the pockets of all kinds of people, too, when he was running. But he had a lot shorter track record of it. He wasn't necessarily, he was teaching at Harvard and then became a senator. And, that's cool stuff. Like that's kind of American dream. He had to fight against the odds of his race. And that's American dream style stuff, Right. When you're looking at Hillary's story, no wonder Obama got elected over her. She only is where she is because she married a guy. Now, she did a lot of work. She don't get me wrong. She's done a lot of hard work. Now, that hard work, I don't agree with. Right. She's done, like that hard work was sitting on the board of directors of Walmart.
Wow.
And she's sitting there,
I forgot about that
up until she quit when Clinton won the presidency. She was on the board of directors of Walmart. That's not even what happened between the Secretary of State and this campaign. I mean, not to mention all the speeches she gave that miraculously even though everybody everybody's given up their, transcripts from their speeches to Goldman Sachs that they have, the ones that they have, which is none, she can't seem to find, or she just doesn't want to. And the media doesn't seem to care that she can't anymore. They did for about a second. They pretended to. But they just don't care because it's really you see everything that Bernie and that even Trump are talking about, like the reason, and people question why so many Bernie supporters are actually like going Bernie or Trump, either or. It's like, I actually empathize with that. And I'm not going to say I don't agree with a damn thing that Trump says, but hey, at least he'll fuck things up so much that maybe some people will wake up.
That's my intuition as well, is like, it's I'm not gonna say it's a double-edged sword because I can't compare it to a sword in general. What I'm saying, it's gonna be the lesser of two, not evils, but of two mediums. And even Trump is gonna be a medium because, believe it or not, I had a tough time accepting the fact that the guy has a lot of people backing him up.
Well, he does, but he, honestly, I think that's inflated by his ego and his narcissism. That's constant. Yeah, and that's well, he doesn't even have to spend money. He's exactly. The king of not spending money and making money out of nothing by just figuring out slimy ways to do it.
Right.
That's his whole deal. And that's what he's always done, and he admits it, and he's proud of it. And you know what? I'm going to say this. At least someone is finally up there on the fucking podium being honest about that.
Yeah, he's pretty fucking brutal
at least he's sitting there saying, I'm a narcissist prick.
Yeah.
Vote for me. Yeah. Instead of saying, I'm not a narcissist prick. I'm here to do all this good for people. And then all they all turn out being is a narcissist prick who just does a bunch of asshole shit.
Yeah, I think that's why so many people fucking back his ass up, dude.
Well, yeah. Well, it's that. I mean, well, think about it. You have, and it's really interesting looking at the polls. The fact that, like, I'm putting on a national level, Bernie wins versus Trump, like landslide, like landslide. But then put on a national poll, like Hillary's like going back and forth between anywhere between 1% and 5%, 5 points above him. Now that's scary, thinking of, but here's the thing. There's a quote by Abraham Lincoln, and I'm probably going to say it wrong, but it was in regards to slavery. And it was one of those quotes that still resonates to this day. And I know I'm going to get the wording wrong, but it went along the lines of, like, if we're going to argue in favor of slavery under the guise of the principles that this nation was founded on, which is liberty and freedom.
Right.
I would rather go to Russia, where tyranny is dealt to me straightforward.
Yeah. Russia does not fuck around, period.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying so many people might support Trump, because, yeah, he's a dick, but he's not bullshitting you about it.
Right.
He's telling you he's a dick. He's showing you he's a dick right there. He's showing you that he's going to be a dick no matter what, that he's going to be a fascist prick, not saying it's liberal ideas, not saying it's conservative ideas. He's just saying, I'm going to be a dick and I'm going to do all these asshole things that are, most of them, completely impossible and unconstitutional, but I'm going to do them. And I'm going to do it because, you know why? I'm doing it to win votes, because I'm winning. Look at me. And when I say these things, I win. And he's saying that. He's telling everybody that, and they're eating it up. And then people, like even me, I'm on the fence about that. Like, what would I want? Who's the lesser fascist? Hillary or Trump? And now let me, like, a lot of people I'm sure who might be listening who are in the center or a Hillary supporter or even nowhere near there, or just kind of, just hate the word fascist being thrown around. Here's my definition of fascist. It's actually also Benito Mussolini, the founder of fascism's definition of fascism.
Right.
Fascism, the quote goes, fascism should more appropriately called or rightly be called corporatism, for it is the merger of corporate and state power. Now that's leaving out now leaving out a whole wing of fascism. He definitely was trying to sell fascism to the more liberalized, the more neo and old school liberal world. I mean, it's really interesting that when you look at what a conservative calls himself, it's what they were called liberals back in the 1800s.
Exactly.
And what they stand for, even though it's big money and stuff like that, it didn't matter. It was definitely a bit more of this whole liberty freedom thing, but with a slice of big government, but not too much, and that's the interesting thing about this when you look at that. Now there's the other definition of fascism, which we all know and love, which is radical nationalism, racism, anger, hatred, violence, imperialism, all that stuff.
Right.
Now Trump is representing that side that I just described to you. Very hardcore. But, there's the other thing is he's being very careful about, the merger of state and corporate power part of fascism. So he's really not a complete fascist when you're breaking this down and by political tenets.
Right.
Now, Hillary isn't either. Hillary is half fascist, but the other half of fascism. Hillary is the merger of corporate and state power. And she adds the added flavor of denying it. Which is like, again, the funny thing is they're being very traditionally Republican and Democrat here as far as the past 60 years go. You're looking at Trump saying, Trump is saying, yeah, I'm flailing my arms like Bernie here. Trump is sitting here saying that, we need to build this wall. We need to do, I'm going to, we need to get big money out of politics. Notice how I don't have any of that. Now, we also need to, label all the Muslims. We need to get rid of people. We need to have violence at our rallies. We need to have all this. And then we deny that. So he's really playing the other side of the fascist spectrum there. And then Hillary's playing the opposite side of it. Now, when I look at Republicans versus Democrats, that's very traditional in the regard that Republicans will tell you straight up that they're going to be an asshole and do this asshole thing, that if you don't proceed, it's like the only other people who will agree with that are other assholes, Yeah. And Democrats, they do end up accomplishing the same exact things as Republicans do when you look at it. And yet they tell you how awesome and beautiful and wonderful and loving they're going to be.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And people are wondering why there's so many Bernie or bust people out there. People are wondering why we're so upset that that someone like Hillary is getting all the press and someone isn't, her opponent isn't, and why these Democratic primaries are so slanted, and not only in the media but in the elections themselves. There's it's the very party that's sitting there touting that to abolish voter ID laws and give everybody the chance to vote, yet within their own elections are restricting the vote.
Dude, and speaking of which, now that you opened up the fucking can of worms, man, because what the fuck, man? No coverage for Bernie Sanders. None. Like, very minimal.
There's a lot more than there was in the beginning, and I will say that. And you know what? Bernie is very fortunate to have the biggest form of coverage in the world this day and age, which is the internet. He wins the internet, plain and simple. Like, you look at who wins the who wins the press. Trump is great. He sells ads like a motherfucker.
He's a businessman.
Well, that's what media is. It's a business. Exactly. You got to understand. And when someone's sitting there impeding your business and talking about how your business is corrupt and messed up, and how how your business isn't supposed to be a business, it's supposed to be a public utility,
right?
Or at least some part of it needs to be a fucking public utility and serve the people somehow. Like, when someone's out there saying that at the top of their lungs and ranting and saying it over and over and over again, they're going to not cover that guy as much. Exactly. They don't want you to see the 60,000 people filling up a stadium and overflowing it in every major metropolis on the West Coast and East Coast. They don't want that. They don't want you to see that. They don't care. They want you to look at what a doofus Trump is and laugh at him. Because that makes you click. That means you're looking at ads that they're selling. That means you might, like, a certain percentage of people might click on their ads. That means people are going to turn on their TVs and watch those ads.
Yeah, the whole syndication thing.
And when they're you're looking at Hillary here. It's really funny how you see CNN taking such a stance toward Democrats all the time. Always, they've always been very. They've always had that liberal bias. And I'm gonna actually back up conservatives and say you're right. CNN is a liberal network in that regard, a Democrat network, not liberal, because not all Democrats are really actually liberals. And that what comes out of that is the fact that when you have so many people claiming to be a liberal, and then you have CNN just sticking to it, you start wondering, why are they always so? Why does Hillary have the CNN mug? And Bernie
No,
has the bottle of water.
That's
Why
very,
is Hillary?
very, very true.
Why?
You know what?
Why
Good,
is
good thing you pointed that out because I noticed that.
Why does she get more time? Why does she get more everything else? And why is it that whenever she does something wrong or there's a scandal about her, it's very underreported? When she says something good, it's very overreported. When anybody says anything good about her, it's overreported. But the funny thing is they never argue or have any arguments to why she would be a better leader.
Exactly.
They only say that she would beat Trump, and polls show that's wrong. And everything points to that being wrong, that she would be a worse leader, and she may be the reason we have Trump as the next president. And then you look at the follow the money thing. You've been to opensecrets.com, right? Or
yes, I have plenty of time.
Yeah, so you just go look up Hillary there and look at who's contributed to the Senate and who owns CNN. You always see in the top 5 or 7, I don't know what top it is, but you always see, or what exact number they were. You see Time Warner.
Oh yeah,
and you know the interesting thing,
man.
The interesting thing about them donating to her campaign that they own CNN, and it's not just that. It was actually trying to I forget the name of those laws. What were they? They were trying to regulate the internet. Make it so you had to pay for certain amounts of bandwidth or certain sites.
It was net neutrality and SOPA,
yep.
SOPA.
Yeah, all that was going down, and boom, once they started trying to draft those laws, and the public didn't know about it, and Google didn't catch on and tell everybody, which I
think is a big crock of shit, because how could they not catch on?
Well, they were really going, they were getting all the politicians they could in their pockets, and she was one of them. So that just shows who she sides with, and now why would Time Warner, a company that really wants those kind of laws passed, and they're not going to give up just because it didn't pass once. Exactly. They're not going to give up. They're not going to give up until it passes, or they're shut down, or there's finally a constitutional amendment that prohibits it, that actually recognizes the internet as a form of free speech. Or whether it's selling on the internet or whether it's talking or whatever it is you're doing.
Right,
but
exactly.
Up until that point, they're not going to quit.
No, they're not. Absolutely not.
Interestingly enough, that issue has been avoided because we feel it's all like under the rug now. Yet we watch what the media is doing with these certain candidates.
Well, take, for example, let's use Bernie Sanders as the example right now. I have this big chip on my shoulder that they demonize this whole democratic socialism thing. They do. Mm-hmm. They've been doing it for so long as he's been a senator, and as long as the whole word, as long as the word socialism has been thrown around. But people fail to realize that because of democratic socialism, as horrible as it may fucking sound, dude, taxpayer funds being used collectively to benefit society as a whole. For example, and I'll use, I guess the biggest one, right, is military and defense.
Yeah.
Perfect fucking example.
Yeah.
How do people think it operates, dude? How? It's a socialist program.
Well, yeah, there's that. It definitely is. That's one thing. I mean, especially if you look within the confines of it itself, it's definitely socialism. These people do these work. They get paid. They get a house. They get fed. They get a pension. They get everything they'd ever want for doing that. Now I'm going to say this. They're making definitely more of a sacrifice than the guy, the manager at McDonald's is.
Right. Right. Exactly.
I will say that because the guy at McDonald's isn't going to come back with any missing limbs. He's not or dead.
PTSD.
Or PTSD. Not like the 30,000 people who came back from Iraq that way. As a result of Hillary Clinton's vote, and of course the other liberals like John Kerry,
and no help at all, man. No help.
No. And then they get no help. So I'm sorry, but that's socialism, but it's not necessarily democratic, because when was the last time you got to vote on the military?
No, that's very true, because we don't get to vote.
That's what no, we do sort of, but we don't get to vote for anything important.
Exactly.
We are not a democracy, no matter how you spin it. Now, what Bernie is trying to do is bring this into the democracy that we were told it was supposed to be.
Exactly.
And
okay, for example, highways and roads, man. That's a big thing. That's our fucking bloodline right there.
I was just listening to Jon Stewart. I forget. It was him, like, finally, the all shaggy with a beard showing up and talking about Trump and the same stuff we're talking about. Now, something interesting about that is that it's a part of it's the establishment when you look at that.
Right.
It's the fact that how hard it was he was using the example of how hard it was for him to go be a lobbyist for one day and how he saw how things actually were in Washington, lobbying for 9/11 heroes, firefighters, to get medical care. He had to go to fucking Washington to lobby for that shit. Why do you have to do that to begin with? That's ridiculous. but the second thing is these are firefighters. They're not shooting anybody or getting, they haven't been shot at since fucking when? Since the LA riots.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Rodney King riots.
Yeah, that was the last time a fireman was shot at. And people were fucking pissed. It's like that's what it took. For someone to want to shoot at a fireman. Nobody wants to hurt a fireman. Nobody, I bet even those guys who did back then now regret it. They went,
Exactly.
We were actually going after the wrong guy. They weren't exactly the man. Maybe a cop would have been something more like it. I don't know. Seeing as though the firemen weren't the ones who were beating Rodney King. But anyways, I'm going off track here again.
Well, you're bringing up actually the fire department, which is also a taxpayer funded.
Well, this was about Jon Stewart and the firefighters who were, who were saving us, rescuing people from, ground zero, and how hard it was for him to get through, to lobby for that. And how it was he just was thrown into this snake pit where there were harmless snakes, there were snakes that were actually trying to help, and there was the ones who were just messed up, and wrong and evil, and trying to counter everything good in this world. And those people are the ones who are having the influence over all of our politicians and have them all in their pockets.
Wow.
And that's the problem. And that is and when you're looking at things like these big socialist issues, now, even when we have something roll out like Obamacare, and that's not even really socialist, I'll actually consider that based on my earlier definition of fascism, very slightly fascist in the merger of corporate and state power. But hey, it's better than the way it was before. I will say that it's better. It's not perfect, but the reason it's not good, it's so simple. It's so easy for a president to kill an American with a drone and get that order passed. But it's so hard for them to make a system up that actually helps its own goddamn people to to be able to have a sick day. Like a federal sick day, one sick day a year. They can't figure out how to fund that, how to do that when there's infinite possibilities, yet there is so much blocking every corner they try to go. And the thing is, the problem with the Democrats, and Jon Stewart, I agree with him, he was saying this, was that they just don't seem to get anything done efficiently. Nothing that they accomplish is ever efficient. None of this quote unquote socialism that the Republicans are whining about ever works. And you know what? I will blame the Republicans for making sure that doing everything in their ability to make sure it does not work. But it's not at the same time, the Democrats are caving pretty easily there. They seem to not do much about the next thing working so well.
Exactly.
And it's like when we're looking at veterans who can't get in long lines and can't get their PTSD or their lifelong injuries that they have to endure now, so that they could go, kill a bunch of people so that these very rich people in Congress who we're talking about don't have to have to send their kids to do it. Of course, it's the people who've been given the least amount of opportunity are generally the people who end up enlisting to go do this. And we can't even give them proper health care or figure out how. It takes so much ranting and raving. Yet once it's time to invade, we are on top of it. You know what? These people got freaking gold toilets over there too. You know, it's like while they're there, they're treated like kings. And then they get back.
That's absolutely true.
And it's like they can mobilize this socialism you're talking about. They can mobilize all that. Now, I don't agree with any kind of non-democratic socialism, and I don't agree with any kind of I don't like authoritarianism. You know, there's Noam Chomsky always says, you know, there's the good authoritarianism, and there's the bad authoritarianism. There's the kind of authoritarianism where your 3-year-old daughter is about to run across the street into oncoming traffic, and you go, no, don't. That you're going to get yourself killed. Don't do that. I need to hold you back for a second. That's good authoritarianism. Bad authoritarianism is when you're saying, when you're doing that, you know, that thing your mom used to do, going like, well, why can't I watch the radar movie? Because I said so. You know, like,
with no explanation.
Just with no explanation. Don't ask questions. You know, you'll know when you're older. Someday it'll come. You know, like that kind of bullshit is the authoritarianism that is what we're dealing with. That is the nanny state that all these conservatives are complaining about. You know, it is bullshit. But then there's also the kind of stuff that's like I was saying with your daughter, like regulations on food labeling. You know, for God's sake, we actually know where our food came from. Right. Like that's gotta be the worst thing to ever happen. I can't believe there's any opposition for when the people vote. Like to have labels on their food that it gets shut down. You know, like telling us how their food was made. Now, I'm going to say that definitely, and both sides are responsible for that. I'm not going to say they're saying it's Democrats or Republicans who are at fault. It is not either of them. They are tools. You know, like they are tools. They're bought and paid for, and they will do what they have to, and they will pretend like they oppose something while actually helping it. And you know how they're helping it? They're helping it with bullshit that invalidates things like GMOs, let's say. For instance, so that was what the food label thing was all about, right? We wanted to know if GMOs were a food. Well, yeah, there's idiotic things that don't affect us with GMOs. You know, actually, when you really look at it, which is their argument, and it does make sense. Everything is technically a GMO that we eat because the human civilization that has been around for X amount of years, growing crops and adjusting them and making sure and the best ones, you know, mixing the best ones together, things like that, you know. And what they do is they're genetically modifying their crops, and they've always have been. That's fine, but I think what they fail to say and mention, and even the Democratic side does, or the quote unquote liberal side does, is they conveniently never mention that this means that these GMOs are like made in a lab, and that this massive company is out there trying to hoard all of them and put everybody else out of business.
Right. Exactly.
And have no regulation to whether they poison people or not. You know, and that's not cool.
For those of you listening, that company that Sean is referring to is Monsanto.
Yeah, Monsanto. Yeah, that's Monsanto. And, you know, and cool. Like, whatever. If there's a point where these, and that's just a prime example of a company having too much monetary influence. Too much.
Have you heard these guys from Monsanto, like state their case as to why they do what they're doing? It is the wickedest shit ever, dude. Like they're convinced that this is the future of food.
Well, yeah, the future of food, great, awesome, excellent. So are you. The future of food should be something where everybody, no matter who they are, is able to fucking eat.
Right, exactly, man.
Because I'm sorry, but you have the right to live, and you need food to live, for Christ's sake. And you know what? You should have the right to eat healthily and live. Right now, anybody making minimum wage can't afford anything but dollar burgers at fucking McDonald's.
Exactly.
And you know, or even when you get the food, they keep cutting the food stamps, everything like that. And you know, and that's great that they're trying to make food cheaper and better and more affordable, and fine, whatever. But why is it that when you go to Europe, everyone's healthier?
Oh, yeah.
And all that, and Monsanto is not allowed to do business there?
No,
everyone's healthier, and they're not now. And these people smoke like fucking chimneys, you know? Like,
oh yeah, they smoke every single day.
And they all get healthcare. I don't think they're getting liposuction with their universal healthcare. All right. You know, it has
really
to do
no
with
need
nutrition.
for them.
They're eating local, good quality foods that aren't mass produced and factory farmed, which is the problem. And Monsanto, that's trying to reshape the way food is doing, is disregarding everything that this world needs to do to survive. The future of food is going to destroy our planet if you're looking at what they're saying. And you know, like for instance, just not only let's leave out the meat discussion with the factory farming of pigs and the factory farming of cows. I'm a meat eater myself, and I am against that. But let's leave that out. Like we all know how much that just ruins the fucking environment. Not only with methane emissions, but you know, the runoff situation. Yeah, the water and runoff situation. Well, it's not only that. Think about you know, Monsanto is a pesticide company, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah.
That's what they always have been. Now, their thing is not only to sell, they're making these genetically modified organisms that can resist and you know that can resist you know, pests or insects. Well, you know, it's not always going to happen that way. They're still going to be there. They're still going to end up in things. And you know what? The insects, the sad part is they're also destroying the fucking bees in the process.
Yep.
You know, exactly not just being on Monsanto. It's actually several pesticide companies which are doing that. Mm-hmm. And but also the fact that those, and then the funny thing is the crops are dying as a result of it. A lot of the farmers, their crops are dying because they don't even, because these genetically modified plants, you know, are killing the bees off.
Yeah, like, that is very true. For those of you listening, the bees are fucking dying, and it's not a good thing.
And it all stems to this bullshit of it's really becoming a monopolistic system with each company its own quadrant. I mean, you know, like, I mean, really, you don't believe that exists in this country. You are blind. But if you really want hard facts about that, why don't you try to find a different cable company in your neighborhood? If you don't think monopolies exist, why don't you try to find a different phone provider in your neighborhood? Somebody else who can provide you with quality internet. Just try to find that. Oh, like, yeah. Well, you know, you have like a choice between AT&T and Time Warner, where one gives you nothing for a lot of money, and then the other one, Time Warner, gives you a bit more for less money. But either way, you're just having to pick the lesser dick. It seems like the whole deal. Yeah. But then once you get down to it, but cable wise, what do you have? You have that. You can either have a cable or a dish, which sucks. You know?
That's absolutely true.
So that's who made that possible? Lobbying from people like Comcast and Time Warner to Congress, and to make sure that it was a jurisdictional territory designated thing, and then those districts, when like are assigned certain areas and certain territories to the respective corporations.
Exactly. And for those of you listening right now, I know we keep throwing the word lobbying, and I know a lot of people, I know it's going over the heads of a lot of people that are going to be listening to this shit, but it's in layman's term, lobbying is like, what's the best analogy I can use? I don't know. Say me and Sean were, I don't know, Edgar, Sean, Tallen, I don't know, pharmaceuticals, whatever. We have all this fucking money, and Sean's like, hey, you know what? We really, really need to sell this, I don't know, penis enlargement pill because it works. So how do we do that? By lobbying. So what is lobbying?
I think also, for one, I'm going to break that one down and say that you don't need a lobbyist to sell a penis. A penis enlargement pill. I think that sells itself if you can prove it works. But
exactly. Without being as graphic, you got to use like stock images and shit.
The keyword you use is sales.
Yeah, exactly.
Apart from being an audio engineer and somebody who's worked in education, I've been a salesman for most of my adult life by default. In many cases begrudgingly because of who I worked for. But now, I'm working in sales, and there's keys to not being a manipulative salesman and to being a good, honest one and you actually end up doing better. Not only maybe you don't do as good as fucking the guy at the top, but you're doing almost as good as the guy at the top. And you know what? The difference between you and the guy on the top is you're going to end up happier.
Exactly.
But I mean,
and people may ask, okay,
sales.
Who are you selling to? Who are these lobbyists selling to?
They're lobbying on politicians. Like I'll use that as a figure of speech a lot of the times. Like, I'm trying to get optimize things at work, trying to get them to adopt the CRM and stop using this database that looks like it was made in 1999, right?
Exactly.
And what I'm doing to the boss every day is showing him evidence and facts and lobbying to him of how he can make more money if things will be more efficient and less people will be left behind if we actually get more organized and adapt to these new products. Now that's sales, and that's lobbying actually in its essence. Now, another way of lobbying is if I happen to have a lot more money than my boss, I go into him and I go, hey, if you adopt this particular CRM, I will make sure that, next time you're, going golfing or you're going to travel, you're, like everything's taken care of. Or you're going to run for office again? Right? Well, maybe we can help with that, Like that's what they do. It's mostly campaign contributions. Now, you look at this, you're looking at Congress. They have Congress and Senate, there's no term limits. They can keep doing this forever. They know that there's always another election 2 years away to win.
You know what, man? Speaking of this whole lobbying thing, I wonder if some of the Democratic parties and liberal parties are lobbying to Facebook because of this whole algorithm that's blocking out conservative news. You think it has something to do with that? Maybe.
I honestly, I don't know. So I'm not, like I said earlier, I'm not going to say I know something that
they're supposed to work as a traditional newsroom, but it's not.
I'll say what it looks like. I'll say that Facebook is supposed to be something that's selecting things based on what you're looking at. Now, I'm going to say this: when we're looking at those feeds and what's trending now, it's based on what your friends are liking. It's based on what the majority of people out there are liking, and a combination of what you would like. Well, now what do you notice on most conservatives? You go to any liberal article on the planet, you see at least 10 or 20 different conservatives trolling the shit out of it, complaining about how everyone's. Well, I wonder why these liberal things are trending now in their feeds. Maybe because they're reading them.
Precisely.
And it's
I was thinking the same thing because they're opening them more.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think it's lobbying, and I think that Facebook is it's a company just like any other, right? But I personally don't think Facebook the type to lobby for anything except against things like lobby against or lobby in favor of net neutrality and stuff like that. I don't see them having any advantage to that. Now, that actually brings me to back to Hillary and Trump a bit here. That's the same sort of thing. It's a lot of people think that there's one theory being tossed around with them. And I know I'm kind of flip-flopping on subjects here, but I'm sorry. That's what I do.
That's all good.
But it reminded me of this, and I think it's necessary to bring up. A lot of people out there think that, and it's a conspiracy theory of sorts, that Hillary and Trump are working together, right?
Wow.
And Hillary is like just wanting him to be like this, so she is the lesser evil candidate, makes her look great. He gets like engulfed in scandal, all that stuff. I mean, time will only tell what that is, but like it's so that someone like him can beat Bernie, so Bernie doesn't get there, so an outsider on the Democratic side doesn't get there, so that she can eventually win. And you know what, I'm gonna say that actually, when you think about it, when you ask a certain question, makes a lot of sense, but I'm not going to say it's true because I don't know. But what I will say is I'll ask anybody, any listener, you, this question. if you were a billionaire, a multi-billionaire who makes money from doing very little work or being an asshole,
right?
You know, and just kind of laughs about it and goes, "This is awesome. I'm just playing everybody. This is great." You're that kind of guy, right?
Right.
And is it better for you to be the president or to be the reason a president was elected?
Wow. Well, I would say to be the reason.
Is it more profitable?
I would say to be the reason.
A main contributing factor to a president's election. Would it be in your best interest as a billionaire businessman to be that person or to be the president?
No, to be that person.
Exactly.
I think that would be.
That's the only reason why I say that's a valid conspiracy theory. Yep. And I'm still going to leave it at conspiracy theory, meaning that's not true, but it's valid just for looking at things in that perspective.
It's a possibility is basically what you're saying.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's in the realm of possibilities, and it seems a little fishy. And it's just like what we were talking about before.
But credible enough, because if that's the case with Donald Trump, then that's quickly going to unfold come November.
Yeah, no shit. But then by come November, who else? Then what?
Exactly.
No one's on the ballot. When has a write-in candidate ever won? You know, like when's a green candidate ever won? You know, people are still gonna people are gonna still vote emotionally. And I'm gonna admit I do the same thing too. There's certain candidates that have captivated my emotions. And one of them definitely is Bernie Sanders. And I will say that he's definitely done that because you know what? My emotions toward politics tend to levitate on a bit more of compassion and fairness and even playing fields and those old, the very conservative ideals that founded this country would be liberty and freedom and you know, every man's created equal. And of course, later on in this country, it became every man, regardless of skin color and religion,
right.
And then every man or woman. And then, you know, it gradually became what it is. And we need to keep moving in that direction and not go backwards and not stay idle with it.
Exactly.
You know? And I'll give props to Hillary for her feminism and for her promoting that cause. I agree. And I will never, ever, you know, when I agree with somebody just because of who they are, I will never denounce what they said. I will stand with them when they're right and stand against them when they're wrong. It just so happens that I find Hillary to be wrong a majority of the time. And then she's right sometimes. And I'm going to sit there and say Hillary's right, you know, and Trump's been right.
Yeah.
Trump was right when he called out fucking Jeb Bush.
Yep, exactly. I was just about to bring that up right now.
He called out Jeb Bush, and he was right. But here's the thing: he was also being a hypocrite because he was just as much in support of that war as Bush was. you know, like if you go back to records back during then, he was talking invade him. What would he have done? Oh, he would have invaded the fuck out of him. Exactly. You know, like that's what he's all about, you know? So but at the same time, I will still, even though I know it's bullshit, when they're saying something right, I will say you're being right. Thank you.
Right.
You know? And I just find, you know, and I don't want somebody who I agree with 100% of the time. That defeats the point of democracy, and they're not a dictator we're voting for.
I just felt for a while there before the Democratic primaries that were going on this year, I'm like, the reason why Hillary will become the president is because of this whole American chip on its shoulder about making history. Like, we had a black man in office, now we're gonna have a woman in office. I think that's the only reason why I was convinced, hey, she will be the next president of the United States. But now, after all this stuff I've been reading about her and more is surfacing, I don't think she's going to win.
I don't think she is either. I think that Bernie has a very good chance of actually getting this. And I'm going to say this. She's lined with controversy. It's constant. It's one scandal after the next with her. Nobody. I'm sorry. I don't know where these supporters are coming from. Maybe I'm just in this Californian bubble, but I've been traveling a lot this year, and I don't. You know, when I talk politics to a lot of people, and I don't really talk to anybody who's like, yeah, I'm all about Hillary, except for maybe a couple. And you know what? The last one I talked to was a good old friend of mine, and he was raised on a fucking you know, like communist commune, like in Vermont. And he's like, those exact kind of people like traumatized me as a child, you know, like Bernie. Oh, wow. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, you know. And I compared that to like earlier that day, someone was going like, why don't you like Enigma? Enigma is great. And I'm like, fucking, I was raised by a crystal worshiper, dude. Like I fucking hate that new age bullshit. Screw you. I don't care if it's good or not. I don't want it. Get it away, you know. Wow. And I understood right there and then what he was saying, you know. And there are those people. There are those people who are like that. There's people who are more moderate. There's people who are more trusting than I am and you are. There's people who are less jaded than you and I are. There's people who are just doing fine and don't see the bad things and they don't want to. And that's fine. And they're not bad people just because they support somebody. And I don't think that even I would never even think that of conservatives. I have friends who are conservative. I love talking with them. I love debating with them. I love talking shit with them. And you know what? They can usually take a much better joke than any liberal can, because at least the liberal's not trying to, you know, or at least the conservatives not saying they're trying to, like, you know, stick to what's politically correct according to the internet standards of speech, you know. And
I actually know more conservatives that are they'll cuss, they'll take a joke. They're a little bit more, you know, they're a little bit more rugged around the edges. And then, you know, I got some liberal friends where I can't even say specific words, dude, and they get offended. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, come on.
Well, there's also there's the other side of that argument too, where politically correct is. John Cleese just did a rant about this, and it was amazing. And it was about, like, you know, I hate political correctness, and I hate using the term to describe what most political correctness is. And it's actually the act of being polite in many cases. Right. I will say that, and I will give them that, you know, like when you're around, you know, if transgender people don't want to be called trannies, don't call them trannies. Just be polite. You know, unless you're really close and buddy with one of them, and you know that's okay. You know, you don't use the N-word to describe black people.
Exactly.
That's not polite. That is rude. If you want to be rude, then use that word. Exactly. If you want to use it in not a creative and intelligent context that you know those people will understand.
Right.
Then don't use it. But if you're going to use it creatively and use your brain, or, you know, and use it to the right audience, you know. And a lot of people, they'll treat you buddy, and I noticed the double standard of that, where a lot of people, you know, who stand behind this politically correct bullshit that we're talking about, right, which is just getting offended by every last little thing. Well, they're equally as you know, open to offend any person on the opposite side of the spectrum. They have no problem with attacking them and being rude to them back. And then it's the polar opposite, which is just as bad. You know, it's like looking at somebody who's an absolute communist who's versus an absolute capitalist. Right, you know, They're both suck. You know, we don't want either of them in charge. Thank you very much. Just like we don't want the born again Christian who's offended every time someone says the word gay in charge, or, you know, or the politically correct, like ultra socialist vegan person who's equally offended every time the word gay is used, because they don't understand why that word is used to describe homosexual, and that's not the correct terminology. It's LGBTQIGFXWZ community.
Don't
damn
even
it.
Get me started
and that's fine. Again, Patton Oswalt did something great about this recently. He was like, I don't mind calling you what I'm supposed to, but give me guy a break, for fuck's sake, if I'm not up to everything you want me to call you, since it's changing every goddamn week.
Yep, like, that's very true.
And that's the thing. You know, it's like I've been out there and I've fought for LGBT rights for the ACLU. I have fought for so many different causes, like in the streets. I like approaching people, humiliating myself, anything I had to do to get certain things done that I believed in. And for anybody to say, just because I forget one letter of an acronym that was updated 2 weeks ago in terminology, like that they're offended by me doing that. And I had no clue. It's like, it's ridiculous. They're not giving any leniency, and they're actually being quite just as bad as that other side.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and
more.
And it's they're not giving any understanding or leniency to the people who are on their own fucking side. That's like the born again Christians blasting the people who are deciding to have same sex marriages in their weddings or in their churches. You know, saying that they're not Christian, they're not this, they're not that. You know, and then those other Christians are going like, whatever, we don't even care about you. Because you know what? Those people are probably doing what Jesus would have fucking done.
Exactly.
You know, and gone, you know what? If you want to be a dick, go be a dick over there. I'm just going to ignore you and keep being happy and having fun and helping people over here. You be angry. You be upset at every last little thing and see how happy that makes you. You know?
And that's when you get stoned, you know, you get whipped, you get lashed, and get nailed to a cross. Apparently.
Exactly. When you I guess if the myth is correct. But but I'm just saying, you know, like there's two sides to everything.
Right. Exactly.
And there's gray areas in between those two sides. And nothing with this world of billions of people, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. There's the ways that we do things versus the ways that we want to do things, or the ways that we don't want to do things, or the ways that we should do things, or the ways that make sense and the ways that don't make sense. There's so many possibilities in this world. And the funny thing is we are all the same animals in the same species,
exactly.
Yet, and we all essentially want the same things: is to survive, flourish, and be happy. And there's some of us who want to dominate others. There's some of us who want to hurt others, and there's some of us who want to help others, and there's some of us who want to kind of be in between. There's some of us who just want to shoot heroin in an alley somewhere. There's all walks of people out there, and but at the same time, they all want to be treated fairly. They all want, you know, either they want to be treated fairly, or they want to not be treated fairly, but of course in their favor, meaning that they're getting all the fairness and everybody else isn't, you know. So and really that's what I see what our politics are becoming about when we're comparing the candidates that are out there now, and why I think my personal opinion is that Bernie is the best option for that. Oh, and by the way, I'm DJing a benefit June 5th, 2 days before the primary.
Oh, nice.
We get to vote on Bernie here in California, and hopefully make at least this contested in the Democratic convention. We're throwing together kind of a punk rock goth sort of benefit at Complex in Glendale.
That is awesome. So for those listening, is June 5th?
June 5th in the evening at Complex in Glendale. It's 806 East Colorado Boulevard. That's what it is.
And that's Sunday, June 5th. That's a Sunday, everyone listening.
It's a Sunday?
Yes. Sunday, June 5th.
I thought it was a Thursday. Shit.
Anyway. It is a Sunday.
Oh, shit. Wow. I had no idea. Anyways, yeah. So June 5th, that's where we're doing that just in time. Just before the election. There's going to be computers there for donations. There's going to be you can buy some Bernie paraphernalia there if you want.
Nice.
Stuff like that. And really what this is about is whether he wins or not, you know, it's good to keep giving to the cause of what he's done.
Exactly.
and to keep it going forever, you know. And the fact that somebody is challenging the establishment and doing it in a rational regard, not a showboaty, narcissistic regard. You know, they're doing it in an actual way that is kind of removing themselves from the algorithm. And I feel like, you know, maybe he's full of shit. I don't know. Bernie might be. But, you know, so far, his record proves that he's less full of shit than everybody else up there.
Exactly.
And you know what? And I believe those things that say, yeah, his facts are definitely skewed sometimes. He's not always right. And he's also sitting there ranting just like I am, just like I'm sure a lot of the facts I've said are completely wrong. Maybe some of them are. And I'd love it if people fact check me on that. I'm open to being proven wrong. I have no problem with that. But what I like about that guy is he's saying the same exact shit.
Exactly.
He's saying, prove me wrong and I will admit I'm wrong.
Exactly.
And that's something that Hillary won't do. That's something that her husband wouldn't do. That's something that Trump wouldn't do. That's something Ted Cruz wouldn't do. I mean, for fuck's sake, look at Ted Cruz. How many times does he have to be proved wrong before he admits that he's fucking wrong? That guy was such a fucking douchebag. Oh my God. I would not care if that guy was dead in the gutter somewhere.
And
but anyways,
he dropped out.
Like, I mean, at least Trump's entertaining, but
Exactly.
like, but I mean, that guy was just like, that was the epitome of theocratic evil. Who that man was.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, like, and you could tell his own family thought so too.
Yeah, that was all bad.
Oh
That
God.
was all bad.
It's like a fucking salamander of a human. But anyways, but sorry, I'm beginning to rant now, and I'm feeling that whiskey I had at the beginning.
Well, I mean, we're gonna wrap it up here shortly because we're already past the hour. But I wanted to leave you listeners with one thing that I know for a fact that I read in a book. I read a sample of it, but I think I'm gonna end up investing in this book because it's great, and it's by Simon Sinek, of course. I'm big on Simon Sinek, as everyone so solemnly knows already, but it makes sense when he says that we don't, I mean, I'm going to put this in my own terms, but we don't learn shit when things go right. We don't. We learn more when fucking shit hits the fan. And sometimes we don't learn right away. We don't. And with the current state of not just California, but our country and the world, there's a lot of shit going on now. I think the shit didn't just hit one fan. It hit one fan and it ricocheted to another, and it's basically going on all over the world, and it's continuing. It's basically raining shit now. It's like fucking drizzling shit because there's so much precipitated out in the air now.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is if for you guys listening, if you didn't vote in the past, if you've never voted, okay, what you need to learn from that is you need to vote. I just got my ballot in the mail. I will vote by mail. If you haven't, don't ignore it. Don't throw it away. Give it some consideration. Read it. Even if you have to get a Cliff Notes version on Google, whatever, vote. You guys have to vote. You have to. I don't know how much I can stress that, Sean, but a lot of people just don't vote.
Well, yeah. If Emma Goldman, very famous anarchist and feminist from the 30s, 40s, was exiled to the Soviet Union, came back and went, "Whoa, the Soviet Union is worse than the U.S. I thought it was going to be awesome." But anyways, she was an amazing figure in liberation history. She said that if if voting changed anything, they'd make it illegal. Exactly. And I'm going to say this, and I understand why people are disillusioned from voting. I understand why young people are, because it doesn't change anything. They don't think it does. Well, you know what? This is the time we have the opportunity to either prove that it does or does not.
Absolutely.
To prove that. This is where we're putting that to the test, where we know what's going on, and they're telling us something else. And if it's going to go their way, we know at that point that this is all bullshit and it needs to stop.
Exactly.
And you know what? It'll be a wake-up call. And you know what? You can go test for yourself and see what happens. And you know what? The worst that'll happen is it will or it won't. He'll win or he'll lose. Exactly. He won't. You'll wake a lot of people up. He will. You'll wake a lot of people up.
There's so much transparency right now in our country that it's ridiculous, especially with the gift of the internet. So for those of you listening, do the research. Even if you have to ask somebody, don't feel ashamed that you don't know. I get a lot of people like, "Oh, I'm not into politics. I'm not going to vote." I understand the fear. A lot of it is fear of not knowing, fear of the unknown. That's what it is. I was in the same spot too. Like, I made the big mistake of voting for Arnold Schwarzenegger for governor. We all know how that turned out. I'm the governor of California. I got to fuck shit up and go to the shopper.
Again, I will say that he did some things I agreed with. Like, I'm sorry, but the DMV has been like way less painful ever since he showed up. Absolutely. But other than that, there isn't too much. But he, Jerry Brown so far has done a lot of things I agree with and disagree with too. And I think that Arnold could have been a lot worse. I will say that he was ridiculous, but there has been worse. I'd say Pete Wilson was worse, honestly.
Oh man.
And he was a centrist. He was a moderate. He's in Hollywood. You can't be you can't be too right and still make it in Hollywood, you know?
Exactly.
Like, I mean, unless you look at Mel Gibson. Look what happened to him.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When you go that far right, man, come on, you're messed up. If you're going Hitlerian right, your career's over, and you might get to be the bad guy in the third or second Machete movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Badass, by the way. But anyways, yeah, like if you need a ride to vote, there are places on the internet and people who are out there who give you a ride to vote and won't ask who you're voting for. Exactly. And the interesting thing is a lot of these people are Bernie supporters because they know that if you're going to vote, who you're going to vote for. So if you're the kind of person who sits there being disillusioned by politics, Bernie's probably the kind of guy who would make you a bit less disillusioned, and you should definitely at least show up. And I don't care if you vote for Hillary or decide to flip to Republican. You may have time for that. I don't know, but just do it. You know, what's it going to hurt? And you know what? Mine's across the street from my house. Luckily, I know not everyone's so fortunate, but LA has more voter polling places than anywhere in the world, and actually has the most efficient voter polling system in the United States.
Oh yeah.
So you really don't have excuses. Just about everybody lives within a 15-minute walk from a polling place.
Exactly.
There's really no way. But you know what? Even me, you can take my phone number, anything you want. My email is stallen, STALLEN @me.com. Feel free to email me. I will call in sick to work that day and give your ass a ride to the polls. If that's really what it is. If you're an invalid, if you can't do it, or you're just fucking lazy, I don't give a shit. I'll do it.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it.
I can't get all of you if like thousands of you go, but do thousands listen to this? How many?
I'm getting there to the thousands. Yeah.
Okay, cool,
getting there.
Well, maybe we'll get there. But or even tens, I might not be able to do. But I'll do my best. I'm just saying within the realm of capabilities. But I do know a lot of other people who are doing it.
Exactly.
And it's amazing. And there's a lot of fun events going on in the city. And it really seems like only one person's putting them on, and any one group of people cares about putting them on. So why don't you go join the fun that's out there and see what it's all about and read into it just a little bit. And I'm pretty sure you'll kind of figure it out on your own.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Sean Tallen. Thanks a lot for being on the podcast, man. I
no
really
problem. It was fun to rant in a microphone in my studio.
Exactly. So hopefully we'll do this again. For those of you listening again, this is the Ed Namrok podcast. Wednesday, May 11th, 2016, with my guest, Mr. Sean Tallen. Thanks again, Sean, and I guess we'll see you next time.
All right. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Take it easy.